Well, hello and welcome to this week's edition of What's Up Danville. I'm your host, Mark Aaron, Multimedia Design Manager for the City of Danville. Of course, each and every week here on What's Up, we're providing you with up-to-date information on events and happenings in and around the Dan River region. And this week, we're going to tell you all about a very special 5K that's going to be taking place here in the City of Danville on April the 26th. It's the Dan River Autism Awareness 5K. It's the third annual event, and it's really become one of the more popular 5Ks here in our community. Close to 1,000 individuals took part in this race last year, and it really just speaks volumes really to the number of individuals that are affected by autism here in our region. And on today's show, we're going to tell you a lot more about just what autism is. A CDC study report just came out last week saying that 1 in 68 children are affected by autism. So on today's show, we're going to tell you all about this wonderful race, how you can get involved, but we also have some experts on the panel here today to tell us just about what autism is. So joining me today is Emily Holder, who is the co-race director for the 5K, and also Ashley Brown, who is the director of behavioral services with Building Blocks Center for Autism here in the City of Danville. And ladies, I really appreciate you both taking the time to join me today.
Oh, thanks for having us.
And Emily, I guess we'll start with you. As I mentioned, third annual event, and this has really become a popular 5K here in the community. I said almost close to 1,000 individuals this year. I think the goal this year is to have more. And tell me, how this event has become so popular? How has this become so popular here in the community?
Well, I think people really latch on to just the idea of supporting someone they know who's affected by autism. We have, the Center for Building Blocks, has a lot of families there, and they participate. They get their friends and their families involved. The race is based on a team model, so we have, parents of children that have autism. They lead a team, and they get their family and friends involved, and it grows from there. And then we also do outreach in the surrounding area of Danville, so we reach out to South Boston and Martinsville and Lynchburg, and so we're pulling in a lot of people from around the region. So I think people just get excited about coming together and celebrating individuals with autism and raising money for a good cause.
Yeah, and let's talk about raising that money, because if you take part in this event, you are really going towards helping for research on autism and organizations like Building Blocks here in our community. Tell me about the funds that are raised for this great event.
So the funds that are raised go towards the Autism Education Fund, which is a fund that's part of the Community Foundation of the Dan River region. So the funds stay local, which is great. And they go to support educational opportunities for individuals with autism, and then also teachers can purchase or can apply for a grant and then purchase supplies that they might need. I know one individual received a grant. He was on medication to help with some of his behaviors, but it caused him to gain weight, and so he applied for a grant, and he was able to get a Wii Fit. And so that was one way. It helped his behaviors. It helped him lose weight. So it's these small needs that teachers and parents can't afford because of medication costs and that sort of thing. So the fund really allows them to seek out these other resources that would be helpful.
Well, it's great to hear that those funds are staying here locally, and it always is great to run for a cause, but even better, run for an individual. Because you have families that are really running for their brother, their sister, their aunts, their uncles, because I guarantee you everybody out there watching knows someone who has been affected by autism, and we're going to learn a lot more about this spectrum disorder on today's show. If you've been living under a rock and don't know what autism is, but we're going to tell you all about it on today's show. But let's talk about the event.
Yes.
Saturday, April the 26th.
Yes.
When will things get started? How can I register? I know we've got a website that's going to be up throughout the show. You can go on the website. You can pre-register there. You can learn a lot more about everything we're going to talk about today. But if I want to pre-register for the race, what's it going to cost me to run? Where can I do that?
So you can pre-register up through April 21st. Go to danriverautism5k.org. You can register to run in the competitive 5K, walk in the competitive 5K, or walk for the cause. If you just want to get out there and have a good time and walk at your own pace, you can do that as well. It's $25 up through April 21st, and then it bumps up to $30 for individuals. Kids are $8, and they can participate in the 1K fun run, which is a really fun event, and they all get ribbons, and it's a really great time for them.
What's the cutoff age for the kids to run in a fun
12.
run? 12 and under. Okay, great.
Yeah, so that should be really fun. We're going to have kids activities out there. We start at 8:30, and it goes until probably about 12 o'clock. silent auction. So it's more than just a 5K run and walk. You know,
it's a big party.
Yeah, exactly. It's a celebration, so it should be a lot of fun.
Okay, very good. And there's a lot of places that you can pre-register here locally. There's 4 or 5 different locations. You've got those on your website.
Yes.
Where you can go, but the easiest thing to do is really just go online.
Exactly.
You accept payment online as well?
Yeah, so you can pay online, all that good stuff. There are pre-registration forms at the Brick Running and Try store, which is on Main Street in Danville. Right. You can also stop by the Center for Building Blocks, and they have registration forms and more information as well. But definitely danriverautism5k.org.
Okay, very good. So all the information there on the website. And we didn't even mention where it's going to be. It's obviously going to be on the Riverwalk Trail, but that spans basically the entire city of Danville, but Anglers Park is where things will get started.
So Anglers Park, because we're growing, you know, Anglers Park is a really great location right on the Riverwalk. We've got the rugby fields where all the activities can take place, and yeah, so it should be really fun. We're hoping for good weather that day, and so come on out to Anglers.
Yeah, it's a great route too. Just ran a 5K last weekend before last, down there on the trail, in that section of trail, beautiful section, and it'll be a wonderful day, and we're praying for good weather, right?
Yes.
Yeah, very good. Well, now let's talk a little bit about autism, Ashley, and being the Director of Behavioral Services at your organization, the Building Blocks Center for Autism. Now, that's located here in the city of Danville, correct?
Yes, it's on 175 Deer Run Road. It's shared with the Center for Pediatric Therapies. It's it's the second entrance.
All right. Now, tell me, for any of our viewers out there who may not know, what actually is autism?
It's a spectrum disorder, so it looks very different from child to child and individual to individual. Okay. The general rule of thumb is that if you've met one person with autism, you've really only met one person with autism. It's a pervasive developmental disorder that affects things like social skills and other forms of development, language, gross motor, fine motor, and all of that. It starts, you might have someone who's just that awkward kid in school, all the way to someone that doesn't talk and they just kind of sit in a corner by themselves and have no interest whatsoever in the behavior of others.
Okay. So now, with such a large spectrum, how do you all as an organization handle each individual? Because it seems like you'd have a unique case with every individual that walks through your doors. So how do you all do that?
At Building Blocks, we use the principles of applied behavior analysis, which is an empirically valid form of studying people's behavior, and then it uses Skinner's method of behaviorism. So we kind of look at each individual, and their behavior is unique to that individual. So we believe that behavior occurs for a reason. All behavior occurs for a reason, and it's up to us to figure out what that reason is, and if it's socially acceptable behavior, to encourage it by methods of reinforcement, and if it's not socially acceptable, to teach a replacement behavior that they come into contact with that exact same form of reinforcement.
Okay, very good. So if I have a child and maybe something's just not right, how do I know, what are the signs and symptoms that maybe I need to come visit the Building Blocks?
The first thing that you should look out for is meeting those developmental milestones. Children develop in a stair-step format, and you cannot skip steps. So, and they all develop at their own pace. Some children don't walk or talk until they're, like 2. Some children are early walkers, and they're walking, it seems like, as like 6 or 9 months. But at the earliest thing to look out for is not meeting those developmental milestones by age 3. Early diagnosis, you have to go to a pediatrician or a psychologist to get diagnosed. But early diagnosis is key. So look out for slow or delayed communication, toe walking, hand flapping, and just a lack of interest in the behavior of others. If I were to drop a pan on the floor in front of a room full of 6-month-old, they're going to startle. It's a natural startle reflex, and some of them are going to look at it. But if I drop a pan on the floor in front of a group of 3-year-olds and none of them look at it, that would be my first indicator that something just isn't right. So I would want to kind of go in and rule out things like a hearing loss or something like that before I jump onto autism. But it's important to monitor those developmental milestones.
Well, that's good to know for any of our parents out there who have children who just may have questions. When we talk about the spectrum, can you give me an example of one end of the spectrum versus the other, and what would be a comparable between one end versus the other?
The higher functioning side includes children with what we call high functioning autism.
Okay.
It's literally that kid in 5th grade that just kind of says the weird things, and doesn't really make any sense to you, but they've made this connection in their brain. And it's not unique to 5th graders. It's any grade. It's that 3-year-old that doesn't really know how to make friends, or watches his dog smell another dog's ear and then goes up to his friend and smells his friend's ear. Doesn't really understand that that's not how humans make friends. That's how dogs make friends.
Okay.
And then the other side of it would be a child who doesn't talk, has no interest whatsoever in the behavior of others, sits in a corner by themselves and tears paper or flaps their hands or rocks back and forth, or engages in other what we call self-stimulatory behavior. It's anything that they do that makes them feel good. They're literally in their own world. They're locked in and they can't get out. It's up to us to meet them where they are and to pull them out of it and to let them know that they can exist in both worlds. So it's the kid who's talking and is just a little awkward, all the way up to the kid who just sits by himself. And
it is a large spectrum.
It really is.
I guess for our viewers at home who may be my age or a little older, probably familiar with the movie Rain Man. I know I heard you speak last week about this, but Dustin Hoffman had autism, right? And he was a card counter, very smart. So that's one example that some of our viewers may be familiar with.
Yes,
right? Okay.
yeah. And he, the character that Dustin Hoffman plays is very unique. He's a savant. And that's really not actually common in autism. It's about 1 in 6.
Okay.
And it's not always cards and counting. It varies. You might have a savant that can pick up a musical instrument and never ever have played it and be fluent and be able to play like Flight of the Bumblebee on the flute, or the Tales of Scheherazade on the violin, which are both very, very difficult pieces. You might have a kid who can sing perfect pitch, and just all you have to do is sit there and say sing an A, and it's perfect every time. You might have the card counter. You might have the kid that on a 9-hour flight to Japan can learn Japanese, which is a tonal language. It's so unique and it's so cool. And Dustin Hoffman did a great job in that movie, but it's not very common.
Very cool. Okay, well, we've all heard the numbers, I think 1 in 88, and then last week, CDC comes out with a report, 1 in 68. And I know you get this question a lot. So that's a, 30% increase or so in the last 2 or 3 years?
Yeah.
What's causing this?
The increase, there's lots of different reasons or suggestions as to what is causing the increase in the number of diagnoses. And the most common accepted theory is that we really just know what we're looking out for now. Back in the day, children with special needs and autism were committed immediately, and now that there's all these therapies out there that show great improvements for families and the family life, parents are now aware it's not a death sentence anymore. It's not this thing that's like, oh my gosh, my kid's different. It's, you know what? I'm in Holland. I planned for Italy, but now I'm in Holland, and I have to find the great things in Holland, and we're going to conquer this as a family. And they do. So I think that has a lot to do with what the increase is in the number of diagnoses. Is we know what we're looking out for, and families are they're being more aware, made more aware of what's out there. As far as causes of autism goes, there's so many different theories out there. And I think before you pick a theory and you go with it, it's really important to look at the data and to see if it's valid, if it's been done according to those experiments that we did in 8th grade using the scientific method and stuff like that. So just use your brain and keep an eye out for different things.
Actually, that's wonderful information, and I'm glad you could come join us today, because it really gives the background of why we're having this run, why we're raising these funds, why we're supporting these individuals here in our community, and it is a wonderful support system. And I think that's one of the reasons why you have such a great turnout for this event, because if I'm a parent and my child has autism, sometimes I figure I'm out on an island by myself. But when I go to an event like this, I say, hey, I'm not alone. You got a great support group, and I know you all offer that at Building Blocks as a great place for families to come together. But this is just another fun event where they can do that as well. But we're going to have to take a quick break. When we come back from break, we want to talk a lot more about the event. But actually, you mentioned it's not a death sentence for these family members. I want to talk about how these children they're mainstreamed in school. We can talk about some of the opportunities that they have to grow here in our community through your organization and company. But we'll touch on that and a lot more when we come back from break. It's the 3rd annual Dan River Autism Awareness 5K, April the 26th, the Riverwalk Trail at Anglers Park. When we come back from break, we'll touch on a lot more about this wonderful event. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
High school graduation, a time for saying goodbye to many things. Those days on the field, going for the basketball championship, your favorite teachers, and of course, all your old buddies. But tomorrow is a new day, the beginning of the rest of your life. You'll be heading off to college, to new jobs, and new places. Guys, it's time to take your place as a responsible citizen and register with the Selective Service System. It's the law. You must register when you turn 18. Like graduation, it's an essential part of growing up. Go to www.sss.gov or pick up a registration form at any post office.
Well, welcome back to this week's edition of What's Up Danville. I'm your host, Mark Aaron, Multimedia Design Manager for the City of Danville. Today we're talking about the Dan River Autism Awareness 5K, which will be Saturday, April the 26th, the Riverwalk Trail at Anglers Park. I want you to come out and support this great cause. Even if you don't want to run in a 5K, you can always volunteer. They're looking for people just to come out, have a great time, support a wonderful cause. In the first half of the show, we heard from Emily Holder, who's the co-race director, and then also Ashley Brown, who is the Director of Behavioral Services with the Building Blocks here in our community, and learned a lot more about autism in the first half of the show. But Emily, Saturday, April the 26th, things get started. What time?
8:30.
8:30.
8:30 registration.
So you can register day of.
You can register day of. We encourage pre-event registration.
Because you save a little money pre-registering,
Yes,
right?
you do. You save about $5.
Okay, so $25 will, if you pre-register $30 the day of, you can go online. We've had the website up throughout the first half of the show. You see it there on the screen. You can pre-register. You can learn more about volunteering at the event because you're always in the need of volunteers,
yes,
right?
that's right. We need volunteers on the day of to help with course monitoring, children's activities, parking. We also need volunteers before event day because we have to prepare all the race packets and do all that kind of stuff. So you can learn more about it on the website. Register to volunteer just like you'd register to run or walk. So we do need help, definitely.
Okay, very good. And as we mentioned in the first half of the show, they're looking at over 1,000 individuals coming out this year to support this great cause. So we look forward to seeing you out there as well. Even if you can't run, we'd love to see you volunteer at this great event. Anglers Park, make sure I'm hitting it all. And things will get started. You can pre-register 8:30 a.m. Things get started. All right, very good. So Ashley, we were talking in the first half of the show a little bit about what autism is, and for families here in our community, I want them to have a better understanding of what is offered here in our community for these children. And we talked about it's not a death sentence for these families. There's a lot of opportunities for these children to grow, and that they're mainstreamed in the schools through the Danville Public School System here in the city of Danville, right? Many of them are, right?
Yeah, they Danville City Schools offers inclusion classrooms.
Right.
You do have your self-contained classrooms, which is basically a classroom full of kids with autism. And then you have some kids that have higher functioning skills. So rather than being placed in a self-contained classroom, they're placed in an inclusion classroom, which is less severe, and they're given access to, they might go to gym with their typical peers, they might go to lunch with their typical peers. They might actually do what's called reverse inclusion, which is where they're actually in a classroom with their typical peers for 80% of the day, and then 20% of the school day they're pulled out for things like resource time. If they have a difficulty with math, they would be pulled out for math time, stuff like that. So there's lots of programs available in the school system for children with autism.
Now, do you all at the Building Block Center for Autism here in Danville offer programs and opportunities and classes for children with autism?
We do. Where Building Blocks is a private day school for children with autism. The priority there is that you have to have a primary diagnosis of autism in order to get access to the program at Building Blocks. CPT also offers speech and OT services in the clinic. And they help children with varying degrees of any type of delay, language delay, motor delay, autism, Asperger's, anything. But at Building Blocks, we have all of our students have a diagnosis of autism, and they get 4 intensive sessions, which is about 6 hours of one-on-one ABA therapy a day, and it varies from different teachers. Work with different students. We have 3 classrooms at Building Blocks. We have a high-functioning classroom, kind of in the middle of the spectrum, and then a preschool classroom. So, and those are all overseen by a teacher. So we have a typical classroom teacher, the middle of the room, or the middle of the spectrum classroom teacher, and then our early education teacher. And then they all have paraprofessionals under them. So it's one-to-one, which is a really great method of learning, and it's very core to the principles of ABA, that ABA is best utilized when it is one-to-one, and Building Blocks is able to offer that.
Right. Well, it's great to know that the resources are available for families here in our community, and a lot of the money that's raised all the money goes back into the community. And tell me about that again, because there's a fund that was set up through the Community Foundation, as you mentioned in the first half of the show, where the funds that are raised for the 5K stay in Danville and the surrounding area. Right?
So teachers at Building Blocks or parents of children with autism can apply for a grant through the foundation and receive resources. So we've got a couple that are going out. We've got a couple grants that were just given out. So we'll announce those at the race, so people can learn more about where those funds are going. So it's a great cause to support, these individuals and the people that, help them. It's a really great fund. And
now tell me, Autism Awareness Month is the month of April, so obviously great time to have the race, but we're going to be doing stuff throughout the month here in the city of Danville and the surrounding area to support autism. And I know one of these is with a light bulb. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, Autism Awareness Month is the month of April. It starts, it kicks off April 2nd, which is National Autism Awareness Day. The Light It Up Blue campaign is part of Autism Speaks, which is a national organization that does research for autism and policies regarding autism. So what we're trying to do in the Dan River region is shine a light on autism, try to raise awareness and support for these individuals and their families. And one way you can do that is by purchasing a blue light bulb that have been donated. And for $5, you can buy a light bulb, put it on your porch or at your place of work, and just show your support. It's a blue light, but people driving by might question it, like, oh, what's that blue light for? And they can learn more on our website. It just kind of shows that we are a community, we're together on this, and we, support Ashley and what she does with individuals with autism and their families and those individuals. So
that's a cool idea. Now, where can I purchase a light bulb? I know you guys have set up throughout the month of April to purchase.
So you can go to Center for Pediatric Therapies in Building Blocks, which is at 175 Deer Run Road here in Danville. They're also available at Center for Pediatric Therapies in South Boston and Martinsville as well. It's a really great cause, and it's just a fun thing to do too.
And Deer Run Road, right off of Piney Forest Road here in the city of Danville. So go out there, and that's just another great way to support this wonderful cause here in our community, and get what color's the light bulb again? Blue for autism. That is wonderful. Very good. Now let's just do it. We got about 5 minutes left. I know there's a lot of sponsors that go into making this race happen and support. But you've got some major sponsors, I know, that have supported you since day one.
So we'd like to thank URW. They're a new corporate sponsor this year, and we really appreciate their support. Center for Building Blocks is a presenting sponsor, as well as the Hughes Center, which is another resource center for children with individuals with autism and other disorders. So we really appreciate their support.
Absolutely. And the entire list of all the sponsors and the individuals that make this happen are available on the website. So we definitely want you to log on to the website and go support these organizations, because they're stepping up to the plate to support a wonderful cause. So we need to support them as well. So again, Saturday, April the 26th at English Park, it's the Dan River Autism Awareness 5K. It's $25. You can pre-register, log on to the website to do that. You can there's different sites here in the city of Danville where you can go pick up your pre-registration forms. If you want to register the day of, there is a $5 additional charge. That'll be $30 if you want to register the day of. And there's a 5K run. There's a children's fun run. You can walk, and you can just walk for a cause, right?
And volunteer.
And volunteer.
Yes.
Good point. Yeah,
Yes.
Emily, if you definitely want to just come out and volunteer. And Ashley, want to kind of give you the last word here because your organization really benefits from this race. Your teachers can apply for grants that this money is raised through the race to support some of your programs. But just seeing the support in the city of Danville and the surrounding region for individuals with autism really has to probably warm your heart. So I want to give you the last word here because you see it every day.
Yeah.
You see what these individuals are going through. You see the resources that are available here in the community that are helping these individuals. So what does it mean to you to see 1,000 people in the Dan River region come out and support individuals with autism?
I don't think there's words for it. It's so exciting to see the support of the community, and not just for me as an employee of Building Blocks and the Director of Behavioral Services. I think it speaks more to the families.
Right.
You said in the beginning that a lot of these families feel alone, and they really do. You do feel like you're on an island, that you don't know which way is up. The whole world is spinning, and it's really scary. But to see the community rally around this cause, I think it helps the families, and it reminds them you're not alone, and we are here to support you, and we encourage you. And if you need help, if you need help understanding why your child does this, or if you need help trying to get your child to communicate, we can help you, and we're here to support you. And I think that's what warms my heart, is knowing that we're supporting these families, because it does affect an entire family. It's not just the parents and the child. It's cousins, it's aunts, it's uncles, it's everybody.
Very good. And as we mentioned, the CDC's new report, 1 in 68 children are affected by autism. So it's great to know that here in the Dan River region that there are places that these families can go to get the support. I think that's the best thing about this, and it's great to see the support. Emily, I want to thank you and everybody with the 5K that have shined a light on autism during this month and really got this growing here in the community over the last 3 years. So appreciate both of you joining me today, and best of luck with the race on April the 26th. Again, feel free to log on to the website and get all the information about this upcoming race, and we look forward to seeing you on the 26th at English Park supporting the Dan River Autism Awareness 5K. So until next week, have a great day.